This is 40K Today. 40K news so important, you'd travel through the eye of terror to get it. Or you could just download it here for free. Hi there, 40K friends. Welcome to 40K Today. This is your daily 15-minute deep dive into the whole hobby of Warhammer 40,000. I'm your host, Steve Joel, and today on the program, Friday, the 8th of May, in a tiny little country, in a tiny little town, a Warhammer hero is keeping people supplied with all of their hobby needs. We meet Scott Bowman. And LVO runner-up Brad Chester stops by with a top tip for getting better at the game. But first, we've got some news to catch up on. We've been running a poll on our Facebook and looking for the answer to this question over the past week or so. Have you tried playing the game on Tabletop Simulator yet? How's it working out for you? So we've closed off the poll. The results are in. 67% of people are saying no. They've never played it. They've never tried it. Some people in the comments are saying wouldn't even think about it. However, it's fair to say most of those commenting have tried it, and among the people who've tried it, everyone is pretty positive. Next week's poll is going to look at proxying models in the game of 40K. Is it okay? Is there a point where it's okay and then another point where people are going too far? What's your experience been? We'll kick that off on Monday on the show. We've spoken this week about Tabletop Simulator and the tournament being run by Trevi at Tactical Tortoise. This thing is a monster. It started with 16 players and now has multiple pods and players numbering in the hundreds, and with so many games going on. Well, our very own John DeMaris has been moonlighting as a guest commentator for games over the past couple of days. If you check out Tactical Tortoise on YouTube or go to our Facebook and show notes for the links to hear John DeMaris commentating games. Boris Mishev and the team at Bad Moon Cafe are auctioning their Catachan Colonel for charity. You must have seen the pictures by now of the limited edition model that's been given to game stores to help them get back up and running. It is so cool. Kudos to many of the stores like Bad Moon Cafe in London who are using those models to raise profile and do some good. Again, the link is in our show notes if you want to get in on the auction action. Okay, folks, let's introduce you to a genuine Warhammer hero. We know that over the past few weeks, getting our fix of plastic crack has been impossible. The stores are closed. The online option has been shut off until very recently. You haven't been able to get paintbrushes or paints or books or anything unless if you spin your globe and look all the way down to the bottom, there's a tiny country called New Zealand. And in New Zealand, there's a tiny town called Paraparaumu. The population is about 20,000. And in that tiny town, there's a man who's been able to keep his local hobbyists supplied. I spoke to Scott Bowman about his very unique situation. From a tiny little town on the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand, Scott Bowman, hello.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. So, listen, let's just talk through your story because it is such a unique thing.
Sure.
The fact that you run a pharmacy, I mean, you're a pharmacist and people have been able to rely on you as an essential service, and obviously you've had to stay open.
Correct.
But a little corner of your store is also dedicated to hobby. And
it's grown from a little corner.
Oh, is it really? So, okay. So
it used to be a little corner. It's now kind of stretched around a bit.
Yeah, cards on the table. I've been out to see Scott, and so he's just up the road from where I am. For people, our international listeners, my city is not far away from his town. So I've been up there. So it's slightly more than a tiny little corner of your store now. But it does mean that people in your local area have been able to come in, and you've got everything in place so that it's all safe and contactless and all of that. But they're able to come in and keep hobby supplies going. Has it been in high demand? Has it been popular?
It's been crazy. I think as soon as people realized they were going to be stuck indoors for an unknown amount of time, the idea of something they can do indoors was great. So existing hobby customers came flying into us and picked up all sorts of goodies for the lockdown period. But we even had people who hadn't been hobby customers before, who had been pharmacy customers and glanced around and thought, oh, I could grab that. So little things like, card games, board games, or even some of the simple traditional sort of the Airfix starter kits that come with paint and glue and brush all in the one set, they flew off the shelves. So yeah,
Wow.
it's been a crazy time.
And I have to say, it's been nice to be able to get in and get things like paints and brushes. I mean, it's for the first couple of weeks we were fine, but then the paints and the brushes started to wear out, and the
Of
bottles were
course.
getting empty. So they must have been
Yep.
a big seller as well.
It's yeah. I mean, the peripherals like that, all your paints and brushes and glues and things. I mean, they were in high demand pretty quickly. But I mean, even some of the big top end ticket items has gone as well. So it's been around. It's just been non-stop. And obviously, normally with, as you said, I'm still a pharmacist, so normally I'm helping out in the store, and the store has been absolutely nuts with prescription business as well.
Yeah, yeah.
With the way the whole thing's gone. I mean, we've had, because people are in lockdown, so people that would have normally been, say, going to the city for their scripts because they work there, they're now at home. So we've picked up new customers that way, and then the government switched everything to monthly dispensing as well. So we just got through the first month's worth, and now they're all coming back for repeats as well. So it's been absolutely nuts, and I haven't even been able to help Tracy out, the pharmacist in store. So she's been run ragged. I've been run ragged with hobbies and things. It's been bedlam, but it's been great fun too, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, you must hear people talking about all this extra time they have in lockdown and think, where is that time?
We've been saying, where's our time? But I mean, hey, it's been good for pennies in the till and things. But yeah, we've been knackered. It's going home and you're absolutely shattered.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not getting any time to do hobby stuff yourself.
Not during the lockdown, no. I mean, as I say, we took the Easter weekend off and we took the Anzac weekend off, and there was so much needed a break for all the staff
Yeah.
because it worked so hard. But yeah, it was just great at those times just to go, pick up a paintbrush and just paint something.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah,
as an aside for folks listening who are all, it's a 40K podcast. So
yeah, but
what's your army? What are you working on? What is your thing at the moment?
I typically go with chaos. I play with my teenage son frequently, and typically goes the good guys, and I typically go the bad guys. So I run Chaos Space Marines for Slaneshi Emperor's Children stuff. I also run Slaneshi Demons. So they're both fun. I mean, they're not top tier lists, and I'm not really a top tier player by any means, but I just like the game and I like the setting and
Yeah.
things, and it's just great fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? It is great fun. And the reason I wanted to feature you on this show, partly because it's such a unique story, but also
Sure.
because, having people in our hobby and in our community who are able to just keep things ticking over and keep things going, it means
Yep.
that the rest of us who are able to find time to do a bit of painting or do a bit of kit bashing or creating, you've kind of kept us sane. The other thing actually that you have that has helped me out personally is the Black Library books. You've got some stock of those, and obviously they're going all
Yeah.
right.
Of course, I mean, yes, it's another little adjunct to the whole hobby thing that the background fluff and lore is such a popular thing too. It's one of the things that really hooks people into the story and buying the models and playing the game. So yeah, we've got a decent little book section as well, and often we run a little Black Library promotion as well. So if you buy a book, you get a free little novella that comes with it as well. So it's always great to pick up, and if you are stuck at home with nothing to do, reading a novel is a nice little pastime too.
It's just a shame that our friends who are listening in Europe and the UK and the States can't partake. But thank you for being available for your local community. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Steve.
That's Scott Bowman, pharmacist, 40K player and painter, and Warhammer hero. Next up on the show, if you're looking forward to getting back into playing the game or maybe getting some TTS games in, LVO 2020 runner-up Brad Chester is in with a top tip to improve your play.
Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org.
Welcome back. So every week on a Friday, we like to take it to the tabletop. I mean, we love to collect and build and paint, but this is where the action happens, when we're playing the game we love. The idea with this regular segment on 40K Today is to help you get better at the game, so that when we all get to go back and play, we have some new tricks to try. We feature some of the best players in the game giving us tips, and this week, John DeMaris speaks with Brad Chester, LVO runner-up, top player, and coach extraordinaire.
All right, Brad, let's talk about list iteration. I think a thing that our listeners probably would like to know is, how do you massage your lists to make them into competitive lists, and what's the process you go through to refine a list?
So I like to start with a concept. Like my current concept we had talked about I was talking with you and Nick about, was a Blood Angel Space Wolf amalgamation of just detachments with it. And the concept is put a lot of hard to kill units in impulsors and stuff like that with when to use some of the new Space Wolf dreadnoughts with 4-up involts, and just take the board and hold it. So I basically get about a 1,000-ish or more points, and I work around that. So my first went, and then you have to ask yourself, are these good against, do I have a problem against horde? Do I have enough attacks, enough shots? Is this good against hard? Do I have things that take out hard targets? Can I take the objectives? Is this going to be late game worthy? And then I work around that. And the thing is I like to have a core concept that, it may change a smidge, but I like to have basically a set portion of the list and then work around, because you don't want to change too many variables. It's like when you're just trying to solve for X. If you put A, B, Y, A, B, C, and Y in there, you know what I mean? All of a sudden you don't know what was the key component there. So I like to just adjust a few hundred points and keep tuning that in, and choosing and figuring out what was the best version, what worked in those versions. Did it, like, for instance, with the Blood Angel Space Wolves, I'm going back and forth between more flying, like the Sanguinary Guard units and Vanguard vets and stuff, and we're just tooling with those. But then I was like, well, is only one battalion enough? So then you're like, well, a battalion gives you a little bit weaker of unit, but gives you 4 more command points, which does a lot when I'm working with Blade Angels and Space Wolf characters and stuff like that. And it gives me a lot of
command points turn them into little murder machines, right?
Exactly.
So if I hear what you're saying, right, when you're iterating, you kind of put aside a part of the list as what you would call the core, like the point of the list. The whole list design centers around these core units, and they're not really going to change much. Maybe a little bit of equipment or whatever. But so you keep those the same, and then the stuff around it, you sort of tailor to what's going on in the meta, or after you play a game, you replay the game in your head, and you're like, you know what, I needed something that could stand on an objective, or I needed something that could, I mean, that's not a good example for your current list, but or,
still, it's the same thing on that. It's just, you have the core of what you wanted, because you could have made the core. I really love, say we'll stay with Death Company and Space Wolves kind of thing. You could have been like, I really like the idea that a big unit of Death Company has pre-game moves. It can, pick up during the game. And I like Sanguinary Guard. And then I like the HQs. And you go, that's the basis of my list. And then you have to make your OPSEC is now exactly what you want to tune with. So it's just, your concept is, and your core, you basically start with that, because I don't like fiddling with too much stuff, because then you're basically either making a complete new list, and it's like you're to the drawing board, and you can't really figure out what were the good and the bad pieces. So I like to have a concept and work from there, and then kind of work small, a few hundred, 500 points or so at a time, usually, to figure out what I want to tool around with. Because otherwise then I feel if I change too much, I'm basically just starting over, and then
you're not iterating on a list, you're building a new list, right?
Exactly.
Which is not the point.
And that's the thing is, like, people do that a lot. I see when I test, I test a lot of times with one of my buddies, Jason, all the time. But like when we'll go to the local game store to, and get games with other people, I just see a lot of times people do that. They'll make that mistake. I feel they'll think that the list will play a test game, and then, they lose the game, and then they feel that they have to just tear the list down completely. You're like, well, you should be tearing it down slightly. You know what I mean? Figuring out what were the best things in that army, and what were the things that you didn't like. So take away the chaff and, fine tune, because you're never going to get a fine tune if you're consistently just,
starting over.
Exactly.
Right?
And you see people do that all the time, where they're like, I didn't think this worked very well, I'm going to do this. And you're like, no, you need to it's fine tuning that makes your list tournament, 5-1, 6-0 ready, as opposed to consistently,
right,
shooting out too much.
The thing about theory crafting is a lot of times there's the devil's in the details. When you play the list, something will become apparent. So you play it and you're like, ooh, this game went okay, but this particular thing didn't perform as well as I thought it was going to in the role I intended for it. Let me try something else in that role. So it might be like a fast moving unit that you can drop onto an objective, or a resilient unit that you can put onto objective because you need something if you're going first that will survive a turn, right? To keep that objective, stuff like that. And so, that's how you're iterating. You're just like figuring out what were the problems with the list. Okay, do I have better options to try in that role? Or this was totally unnecessary. Like, I just I don't need this at all. What else can I put in here to give me a little more power or more raw power or efficiency in the list, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Man, I was going to say the exact same thing, but you took the words away from me. So that's exactly what I was talking about. Just you want to just figure out the role players, you know what I mean, and the best things, and then you have to stay with the core of a list and go from there. Otherwise, you're never going to fine tune the list to make it the best list it could be.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks for the advice, Brad.
Not a problem. Anytime.
That's Brad Chester speaking with John DeMaris. If you want to sign up for coaching, which all of us at 40K Today can highly recommend, and you can find Brad at artofwar40k.com. Now, before we say goodbye, it is time for the model of the day.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
We love that song, right? Today's model of the day is James's Gene Stealer Cult Magus, which we found on his Instagram. He goes by @Hivefleet_horror. And I don't think this is the last of his work that we are going to feature. The Magus is exactly what it was designed to be. The perfect combo of beautiful and terrifying. The face is perfection. And the clean purples and greys are stunning. The link is in our show notes, or you can check our Facebook and Instagram for pictures. And as always, if you have a model, or you see a model that you think we should feature on the show, just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Big thank you to content producer Alex Painter, our social media producer Tanya Gates, and our technical producer Seamus Ronan for all of their work getting this show together again. Now, if you have anything that you want us to feature on the show that you think is big and huge and important and worthy of being on 40K Today, just let us know. Go to Facebook, search 40K Today. We are right there. And make sure you join us next week. We have a packed lineup for you, including Neil Kerr, the head judge at WTC, and a superfan who's painted 200,000 points worth of 40K in about 2.5 years. Also, tomorrow, for the very first time, you can tune in to hear our best of the week. You can download it via the Frontline Gaming Network or via your favorite podcast player. We'd love for you to tune in for that. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, for the 40K Today team, I'm Steve Joel. That's what's happening in 40K Today.